Hello everyone and welcome back to Strange Wonders. As always, I'm your host Mr.G. Today, we're talking about another group of lizards. Yeah, I know we just did one a few episodes ago, but I didn't make the order here the cards did. Today we're talking about iguanas, or more specifically, the marine iguana and the green iguana. The marine iguana, Amblyrhynchus cristatus, is a reptile. It's an herbivore. It was described in 1825, and it lives in the Galapagos. The marine iguana has the same body shape as most iguanas, but with a black body, and males also develop red and green patches during mating season. On average, males are also noticeably larger than females. Now, the most notable thing about these iguanas is that, as their name suggests, they are a partially marine species. Most of the time, these lizards will lay around on rocks in order to absorb heat, but when they need to feed, they will head for the water in order to get their main food, algae. Smaller species will stay in the shallows and eat the algae exposed by the lower tide, but larger specimens will actually go out to sea to feed on some of the fresher algae. These guys can dive down really deep, and I mean nearly 100 feet down, and they can stay underwater for half an hour. These guys also hold the distinction of being the only lizard species to be considered a marine animal. Also, much like sea turtles, they bury their eggs in sand, where the babies hatch and have to run for safety. Meanwhile, the green iguana, Iguana, is also a reptile, also an herbivore. It was described in 1758, and it's native to Central and South America. Unfortunately, with this guy, there's not as much to talk about compared to its marine counterpart. They're basically typical iguanas, climb trees, eat plants, things like that. They're decently good swimmers, but they're not fully aquatic like the marine iguana. So yeah, with them, there's not really a lot to say. Except for one thing I could talk about, but I'm gonna save that for the relationship section. Oh, by the way, when I was younger, I thought that iguanas were like a typical lizard size, something that could fit on the size of your hand. So, when I was 10 and I got an animal encyclopedia and I saw that green iguanas could be 6 feet long, I was just like, what? Yeah, iguanas were a lot bigger than I thought they were. Anyway, let's look at the cards. Now there are 2 errors on the marine iguana card. They're pretty minor, but they're still errors. It overestimates the time they can spend underwater and underestimates their diving feat. Marine iguanas can dive nearly 100 feet and can stay underwater for about half an hour, but here it says they can stay underwater for an hour, and they can only dive up to 50 feet. So yeah, it's a pretty small thing, so I'll only deduct a single point. So 9 out of 10. The green iguana card has a very confusing error, mostly because it's one of those times they make a claim that I have never seen repeated anywhere else. It claims that iguanas start out life as insectivores but transition to herbivores as they grow up. And I'm wondering, what are their sources here? I did research into iguanas, and it says that, yeah, young iguanas are still herbivores. Except that, okay, if you're squeamish, cover your ears for a second, baby iguanas eat poop. Yeah. It said they do that sometimes because it's already been chewed up, so it's easier to digest. Okay, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. 9 out of 10. Okay. Now, as for humans, iguanas are relatively popular pets. They're banned in some states as they're considered exotic, and in some countries they're straight up banned, period, due to importing laws. But they are pretty popular pets, and they're a pretty common sight in zoos. At least green iguanas are. I don't think I've ever seen a marine iguana in captivity. Unfortunately, the marine iguana is considered vulnerable, mostly due to El Nino making the waters in the area too hot for algae to grow a lot, so they end up not having enough food. Green iguana is considered common, though. A little too common, though. You see, green iguanas are an invasive species in several areas, mostly on other islands. In Fiji, they're directly competing with the native iguanas that live there. They're also an invasive species in Hawaii, Florida, and some parts of Texas. So, how did they get here, you may ask? Well, believe it or not, unlike most invasive species, humans aren't really to blame here for the most part. Most of these iguanas came here due to storms knocking them out of their natural habitat and into the sea, where they end up floating to other islands. But still, invasive species always make me sad. Okay, how about some funnier stuff? Marine iguanas were the subject of a popular viral video where, from the documentary Planet Earth 2, a clip was uploaded showing a bunch of babies running away from snakes. That ended up becoming pretty popular. Iguanas have trouble recognizing real and fake iguanas, so they'll often attack plushy iguanas. That's kind of amusing. Oh yeah, and green iguanas are popular as meat. I would actually be kind of willing to try that. I've tried alligator before. It kind of tasted like a chicken nugget and a fish stick had a baby. But it was still pretty good. I'd be willing to try iguana. So yeah, that's all for this episode of Strange Wonders, and that's it for this cycle too. Next time we're going back to Nightmares of Nature, where we'll talk about a fish that traumatized countless 2000s kids. Bye! You know, my sister had an iguana growing up, but then my older sister's cat ate it.